start out with this, that for those of you who've never met me before, I spent 9 years in prison as a young man. I mentioned that I was a pretty bad guy 50 years ago, and that put me in a place where I had to get to know myself and live with myself in a small cell, 6 by 10 for many, many years. And that forced me to kind of do something, and that was search out meaning for my own life. And I met an old black guy in there named Percy John Newton, who seemed very wise. He had a different philosophy than I'd ever seen before. His approach to things was much different than in response to things that happened around us than I had ever seen. And he did my chart. He knew too much about me, and I was a little bit wondering how he could know all that about me. And the thing that really turned me into an astrologer or seeking that knowledge was a prediction he made about a dear girl I knew when I was outside, still a fugitive, living in Virginia, Richmond, Virginia. I had a good friend named Sandy, who was a 17-year-old girl who married a not a very nice guy. He was an alcoholic and a drug addict and abusive, but she became pregnant by him, and she went in the hospital. And we were communicating a lot through another woman named Mary Wiles, who was a preacher woman who had taken and knew I was a fugitive, and she had boarding homes, and I was living in one of her places. And I became close with her and with Sandy and with others. And so what happened was when Sandy's baby was born, I gave the chart to Percy to do the chart of the birth of the child, because I'd asked Sandy if she would let me know the birth time. And the interesting thing about in prison, what is it, Lane? You can talk. Oh, I'm making a noise? Okay. All right. So let me try this. Maybe this will work, if my pants don't fall down. Okay. All right, try this. Okay, now. Good? So anyway, I asked him to do the chart of the child. You have to remember that mail's about 2 weeks getting to you in prison because it goes through censors. And you don't get your mail like in this country, or even email, you get it right away. And so he did the chart, and he told me that very solemnly he walked over to his calendar and he circled the date, and he said, by this day the mother or the child shall be dead. And I was really shocked by that, of course, and I thought, well, the baby would be, because the baby was born premature. And so the next letter I get was from Sandy, was telling me that she had to go back in the hospital because she had asthma, and she was having asthma attacks, and her doctor thought she should be in the hospital to watch her. And she went back in the hospital, and she called Mary Wiles, the minister woman, about 12 o'clock at night. By the way, he said to this hour, he said 6 days from the birth of this child, her mother will be dead. So what happened was he admitted her, and around midnight she called Mary, the minister, and said, they're not helping me, I can't breathe. And there's no doctor on duty, and they won't do anything for me. So Mary got up and got out of bed and went out to the hospital and prayed over her and the things she would do and comfort her, and thought she was okay. Well, the next call she got was at 4 o'clock in the morning from Sandy again, begging for help. Nobody will help me, I can't breathe. And she died at 4:15 a.m. The baby was born exactly 6 days to the hour and minute of that death, at 4:15 a.m. prior, 6 days before that. And he had predicted it exactly. So that's what really decided, in my mind, I better be looking into this. There's more to this than anyone knows. And of course, I spent years studying and researching, and I had a captive clientele. They didn't go anywhere. So if I made predictions, and they had a Mercury-Mars affliction, I wasn't worried about a car accident like I might be out here, Mercury in communication and transportation. I was looking at communication and fights, their mouth getting them in trouble. And so, I could see these things very accurately. In fact, I made a prediction about injury to one of my best friends Bernie was Sullivan, Irish guy, good fighter. And unfortunately, that's the life we live in there. You learn to fight. You don't turn cheeks, or you're turning this cheek. So it's a rough world in there. It's a different world altogether. And the best way to communicate sometime is in a language that people understand when you're there. And the language they understood was a good smack upside the head. Unfortunately, you learn to do that. You learn that that's the way you deal with people. You don't say, "Excuse me, please." You smack them hard and let them know that, look, you do that again and you get worse. But here I am in an environment that's very, very brutal, basically. But I told Bernie, I said, "Bernie, you're going to have a head injury if you're not careful. You're a good fighter, but don't get in any, spats with anybody. You're going to end up getting hurt." He, just blew it off. "Ron, nobody's going to beat my butt." And we were walking to the cafeteria that day, and he grabs me from behind playfully. And there's in prison, you know where to play and where not to, because they got gun collars. And if they think you're fighting, they can shoot you. So you learn all those little things. You live in a place 9 years or 5 years or whatever I lived in. You learn to watch out what you do, where you do it. And there's a spot, it's a blind spot. The guard towers can't see it. And he grabs me. He spins me around on the grass, and he spins me around a few times and says, "If I'm going to get an ass whipping, I'm going to give you one, Watson." And it was playful. And when he put me down on the ground, I spun around as fast as I could, playfully, like this, and I broke his nose. I was the instrument of the prophecy. Who would have predicted that? That I couldn't have predicted. So, it's an amazing, accurate, amazing thing, astrology. You're on a venture. Those of you that are blessed to have Barbara as a teacher. She's been in this a long time. She's a wonderful, she'll get you the groundworks really well, the fundamentals, better than I do, quite frankly. I went to college before I went to grade school. You know what I mean? I'm one of these guys that's a little bit out there, okay? So, it's sometimes it's hard for me to do the fundamentals. But here's the bottom line is this. It'll give you a knowledge of yourself, first of all, most importantly about yourself. And, there's Shakespeare said it best. He says, "Know thyself, and it must follow as the night the day. Thou canst then be false to any man." And that's kind of the philosophy I believe about astrology. People say, "Oh, you spend so much time on yourself, it's so self-centered." I say that's good. You need to do that, because the more you know your own chart, the more you know yourself, the more you'll be able to do other people's charts. Okay, so never forget that it's not... So what I'm going to do is, I told you I'm the author of a book called The Greatest Story Never Told. It's had high reviews. 2 of the top scholars in the world have reviewed it. One of them said it should be compulsory reading for every thinking individual, which for me is a great honor. I'm not a scholar. One of the other scholar is a Hebrew scholar. He's a Jewish scholar, and he's a professor of mathematics at Boston University. And he wrote a wonderful review for the book as well. He said, I've read the book many times, and I never did notice that it says in Genesis that he created the sun, the moon, the stars for signs and for seasons. He said, I never recognized that word, signs being there. And but he did a really nice review of the book. So what I'm trying to share with you is some of that knowledge that I gleaned. I believe this: if you want to understand astrology really well, you should understand the scriptural story. And if you read my book, and I hope if you haven't got the book, I hope you'll get it today. It'll really, it can change your life. I've had a lot of people's lives have been dramatically changed. If you go on Amazon, look it up. It's got a 5-star review. Every review is amazing from people that have read the book. And again, not to, this, I'm not that, I'm just sharing something. I have managed to get a lot of knowledge in those years and opened up a lot of wisdom for me. And I always prayed for wisdom. I always prayed for the wisdom of Solomon when I was in prison. I said, that's what I wanted more than anything. And he's blessed me with a lot of that. I've been very fortunate in what I've seen. The Christians have no idea of their own Bible. And if they, they're always down on astrology, they're down on a lot of the symbols that they demonize, like the 5-pointed star, which is a very powerful, good symbol. I wear it on my hand, I wear it here on a necklace. It's a symbol of the divine man, Da Vinci's divine man. The golden section, the golden mean, it's a magical symbol. It's mathematical, it's got a lot of wisdom. And it was the symbol of Christ, in the early days. It only became demonized later. If you turn that cross upside down, I mean that star upside down, you get an inverted five-pointed star. You get the head down instead of the head up. And that's who was crucified in the Bible, upside down. Do you know? Peter, good. Peter, he was crucified upside down. And he said, I'm not worthy to be crucified as my Savior. Crucify me upside down. So Peter symbolized Saturn in the Bible. Peter means rock. What does Saturn rule? Rocks, crystals, and minerals. Peter was the symbol of the lower consciousness. What does the man describe this? Peter. When the cock crows thrice, thou shalt deny me 3 times? Oh, isn't that embarrassing? I mean, now we got the president candidates talking about that. Big hands and big what? You know, I mean, it's amazing where we've gone in this country. But the point I'm getting at is that I don't want to go there. Don't even go. So the point is, Peter represented all that. In fact, the man uses the vulgar expression when he has a sexual emission. He says, I got my rocks. Think about this. Where do you think these words came from? You know, Peter, upon this rock I will build my church and the gates of hell. You're the temple of God. It's not on 4th and Main. Know ye not that you're the temple of God? What does that mean? If you're the temple. Upon this rock I will build my church. The gates of hell are right here. Shall not prevail against it. Whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth, guess what that means? That's continence. Raising up that energy. The serpent energy, Saturn's energy, Satan the devil. Raising it up on the staff of the spine. That's caduceus of the medical profession. For what purpose? Our Father which art in heaven. Raising that energy to the Father. My Father, I'm a desire. If I have a desire, it means of the Father. The word desire means of the Father. You get, there's so much here. There's so much here. The mysteries are all in this. The mysteries are in astrology. The mysteries of all time are all hidden there. So, wow, you know. So you raise up that energy and you get crowned with a circle around your head. What is that about? Read my book. It's all in there. You ever seen Saturn's rings? Symbolizes raising up that energy. Saturn's energy. Okay, to higher levels. Okay. Oh, wow. See, and there's been times in history where people have been persecuted and killed by the Christians because they were called Satan worshippers. Why? Because they understood this knowledge and they tried to share it. And if they did, they got in a lot of trouble. Oh, how can you talk about that, you know? But here it is. I'm going to take you on a journey today. Just a quick one as much as I can. I'll try to get this going for you on Saturn and Jupiter. And, okay, what in the world is this? This isn't what I had on mind.